Good morning, guys. Today is November 27th, 2016. I'm going to be going over some trade ideas that I like this week. First one on the list, yeah, I know it's a small one. I usually don't like to play these that often, but I felt like it needed to be on the list here. As the chart is breaking over this range over here, so it's actually over any resistance area. You do have a lot of volume coming in. The MACD is obviously crossed over, and the stochastics came off of the oversold condition down at the bottom over here. So I do like this one on a pullback. If it comes back into this low 24s, probably even the low 20-cent range. If it comes back into the 20-cent range here, you can play this one on the long side. And I feel like if it can get back up into this range here, which is right at that 36 cents level, could have a chance to have a decent little move back up into the even this 50-cent range. So it may not be a point gainer, but it can definitely be some sort of a percentage gainer if you're into these kinds of trades. At least for now, you know that your risk is clearly defined here at the bottom. Anything under this 15 cents is obviously an exit on the trade. So if you get it at 20 cents with a 5-cent risk down to that 15 cents, and if it breaks there, you're out of the trade on the long side. But if it holds, you do have potential for a possible doubler up at the top here if it gets up into this 50-cent range. So that's SSH. Next on the list is Vrtx. So what we have going on here is we have a nice retrace trade. We do have the chart that came back and filled this gap down here, and it is finding some support. Chart closed over its 50 EMA, which leaves me bullish. It's also coming up into this trend line break here, so this is definitely something that you should be looking at into this week. It could possibly provide a nice little trade here of the trend line break. You need a close obviously over the 813 area here, but as the chart is right now, you do have a defined risk also, and that's just at the bottom of this candle here on Friday's session. So obviously you don't want it to break there, because then it confirms for more downside. So you'd like it to hold that bottom, even if you were to get it at the double bottom or right at this $87 level. Could be an entry that you would look at, and then have stops down at the low from on Friday's session. Now Friday's session was a low volume trading day, and so that you have to take that in consideration, and make sure that it doesn't get under that, because then it starts to crumble after that. Even if that area is to be broken and you still don't have a trade into it, don't throw it away, as you could still possibly have an inverted head and shoulder pattern right into this range here. So keep this one on watch for sure, and it could obviously provide an interesting trade into this week. PI is the next one here. Now this is an interesting chart, as we did have a run up after the earnings here. Chart has retraced enough off of this range. So what I like to see here is I'd like to see some confirmation for some strength into this range right here. And if the chart was to hold in this range, I'd like to play it long off the retrace from the move to the upside. So I'd definitely be looking at it into this range here. And if we can hold this range, I wouldn't mind playing some, as long as the bottom doesn't fall off on the chart. So make sure that you obviously keep into this range here. A close back over the 50 EMA will put you into a bullish scenario, and then you can add into the trade as it starts working for you. So for right now, we definitely be looking into this zone here, into a decent retrace from the top to the bottom here, and try to see if we can catch it on the curl. The indicators have been reset a little bit. They were a little bit overextended, and obviously a chart is retracing off of that, which leads me into that bullish scenario. Next on the list is HTZ. Okay, so this chart is now making, as for right now, had that big downside. We know that we had some additional shares bought up into this one, and obviously kept the strength of the chart for a few days. Now that the chart's making a lower high, the risk is obviously defined as that would be your risk right there on into this flag break. So what I'd like to see off this bearish engulfing here is I'd like to see another small move to the upside, puts me at about $27.36, somewhere around there. Then I'd be looking for a rejection candle and a short. If the chart was to be shorted and then it comes down under this range here, which would be the breakdown point, then I can add into the trade and just let it ride down. So again, I'd be looking at a rejection here at this 13 EMA, and then an add point under this low for a continued short. BUFF is the next one on the list. So what we have going on here is we also have a decent retrace play. So what I'd like to see is there's a retrace, really nice percentage retrace here, coming right up into the 50 EMA. We're coming up into a lot of resistance areas right here, and that would follow through from right here. So right into this zone here, I'm looking for some sort of resistance. We do have a doji candle printed right up at the top there, and so that signals to me that, hey, maybe we're starting to top off. So what I'd be looking here for is that one little bit more push, because I am a patient trader and I can wait for it. If the chart obviously starts coming down, then I'd use this candle as a stop out area on the short side. But if we get one more push into it, I wouldn't mind being a little bit patient and wait for that $24 to print, and then try it on the short side and see if we can get the chart to obviously break the trend to the downside in order for you to add into that short position. ENT is the next one on the list here. So it's a nice little curl on this chart down at the bottom. What you do have going on is you have obviously the chart making higher lows as it's working its way up, so you have a defined risk here. The chart did provide us with a pattern here, which is clearly defined as an inverted head and shoulders. So I would like to play it somewhere into this range, that way I can risk somewhere around here, and then I can always add into the chart if it goes through this area here. So ultimately I'd like it to come back into this zone, right into all of this resistance here before I was to start taking profits. If we get the entry, the stop, the add, and that's where I'd be looking to take some of the first profits. And obviously you see that the chart is having a problem with its 50 EMA, so when it comes up to that range, I'd also be looking to take off most of the position, as we've seen that it has an issue dealing with that 50 EMA here as it works its way up. So that's the way that I'd play that one. Next on the list is CRM. Okay, so what I'm looking here for is I'm actually looking for a nice long on this chart. So I do have a doji star printed down at the bottom here. We knew that the chart came off strong off the earnings, and now it retraced pretty much the entire move here. So I'd like to be long into this one pretty much early into this week. I'm going to possibly take a long position here and see if the chart can hold this bottom in range here. We do have a nice little double bottom that it formed on Friday, and if it can hold that range, I'm comfortable with trading it. There's also, as you can probably clearly see here, another inverted head and shoulder pattern, and this being the shoulder, and obviously the head range. So you'd have stop right at the bottom of that, and it clearly defines a risk reward scenario there for you. So what I'd like to see is I'd like to see some buyers step in here early into this week, and then I'd probably play it on the long side, hold on to it for a couple days if we get a continuation to the upside, and try to see if I get it back up into the high 77s. Next on the list is MYOV. Okay, so this is a recent chart. Doesn't have a lot of data here, but it's a recent IPO chart. Just came back into what would be the first day trading over here. It came back into that zone. So what I'd like to see is I'd like to see a pullback into this range here, which would give me some support from this range and would give me a low from the initial IPO day lows. So I'd like to see a support level into this $13.25 range. If the chart can hold into that range over here on the pullback, I'd like to take some on the long side and see if we can get this chart to come back all the way up to the tops. And the last one on the list here is ICE. Had a nice upside move here into the high 50s, came back into the mid 50s. Now it's trying to hold the bottom here. We have a couple interesting candle patterns. Chart does like to hold this range here. It's this 50 EMA have acted as a decent area of resistance and support for the pretty much the duration of the recent chart trades here. Once obviously we see the 50 EMA was broken here, was retested, came back down, came back to it, retested, broken, retested, came over it, supported, had a nice move. So what I'm looking to see is if we can get some support off of that pin bar candle right here, and the fact that it closed over its 50 EMA in Friday's session. So what I'd like to see is a hold of this range, and once the chart can hold into this mid 54s here, I'm comfortable with taking a long position on it and try to see if we can get some upside momentum going on. So those are the 10 for this week. I hope that they can provide some sort of a trade, a trade for you. And if you don't already follow me, you can follow me at Iceman Trading, and there you'll find links to pretty much everything that I do. I do put out a lot of charts and commodities review, and also, well, if you're watching this video, weekly trade ideas. So have a good and safe and profitable trading week. Make sure to keep your positions smaller until the chart gives you a reason to add in, and be patient. Let those setups come to you. Okay? Take care.